Welcome to the Author Your Life podcast, where you can write a new script for your life and become the hero of your story. I'm your host, David McRae. You are the author of your life. Let's get started.
All you have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to you.
In my experience, there's no such thing as luck.
It is not our abilities that show what we truly are. It is our choices.
Hello, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of Author Your Life. Today on the episode, we're going to be talking about motivation, which is one of my favorite topics and subjects. It's one of the challenges and questions that gets presented to me most by my students. David, how do I get more motivated? David, I've lost my motivation. What should I do? Now, you get these questions when you get the unfortunate term of motivational speaker, which, as I've said before in other videos, is a term that I really don't like being attributed to me, and I try to avoid using it whenever possible in conversations with people. The reason being, when you call someone a motivational speaker, it perpetuates this myth that motivation is a thing. The way that we talk about motivation so often in society is that as if it is a thing. You go to a motivational speaker and the idea is that because I'm a motivational speaker, I somehow have the secret potion of motivation. That I just need to reach into my back pocket and pull out the magic motivation potion and sprinkle everyone with it, and that's going to get them motivated. The way that we talk about motivation in our everyday lives perpetuates this idea that motivation is a thing. We talk about getting motivation. We talk about losing motivation. Motivation is not a set of car keys. You don't lose motivation. And this whole construct of how we look at motivation is the reason why people are struggling to get motivated, the reason why people are struggling to push through and commit to the things that they want to do. Because motivation is not a thing. Motivation is not something that I give you. Motivation is something that you already have. It's not something we get, it's something we generate. Motivation comes from inside out, not outside in. Now, there'll be many motivational speakers who want to tell you the opposite because it allows them to make more money and to get you coming back again and again for a hit of motivation. But quite frankly, that doesn't work. And quite frankly, that's not the truth. I'm not here to give you what gets me more money and gets me more business. I'm here to give you truth, to give you real information and real education about what is going to help you to make a change. So, if motivation is not a thing, then what is motivation? You see, the way that we often look at motivation is that motivation is a feeling that precedes an action. So the idea being that when we feel motivated to do something, when we have the feeling, then we're going to take action. If we don't feel motivated, then we're not going to do it. Well, let me ask you this. How many times have you felt like going for a run? How many times have you felt like making a sales call? How many times have you felt like approaching a stranger at a bar? You don't feel like doing these things very often, if at all. So how do we actually do them? Well, the way that we do them is by reversing the equation. By recognizing that it isn't just about feeling preceding action. Yes, sometimes that does happen, but far more often it's about action preceding feeling. We do something, and through the process of doing it, then suddenly we start feel like doing it. Then suddenly we start feeling like it was a good decision. And that is the basis of the strategy that I'm going to share with you today. Now, the strategy that I'm going to share with you today is something that I came across and recognized in my own quest for motivation. For those of you who've been staying with me a while and know a little bit more about my personal background, you'll know that from a very early age, I've wanted to be an author. From the age of about 5 or 6, I've wanted to write books and I've wanted to tell stories. That's who I am, a storyteller. Now, I didn't really do so well in pursuing this quest and this passion for the first few decades of my life. And the mistake that I made was to only write when I was inspired. Now, how many books will you write if you only write when you're inspired? I'll give you a clue. It's 0. You will never write and complete a book if you only write when you're inspired. Because most of the time you're not inspired to write. And what I recognized after years and years of only writing when I was inspired was that I wasn't completing anything. I wasn't getting any ideas together. I wasn't writing a book. So I had to change the strategy. And what I recognized was that in order to be an author, in order to write and complete a book, you have to learn how to write when you're not inspired. How to get the action preceding the feeling. So what I did and what I discovered was something called the 20-minute rule. The strategy I'm going to share with you in this video. So when you don't feel like writing, which is 90% of the time, if you are lucky, 99% of the time if you're a normal person, when you don't feel like writing, but you know that you have to write, you know you have to develop a consistency and a routine of sitting down to write, you start the 20-minute rule. So what I would do is I would sit down with my laptop, I'd open up the Word document, and I would start putting words on the page. Now when you start, it's a struggle, it's awkward, it's clunky, and I would allow myself 20 minutes of going through this process of being slow, awkward, clunky. And if at the end of those 20 minutes I realized, you know what, this is just not happening today, it's not flowing, I'm not in the right space, the ideas aren't coming together, then I would stop. I would give myself permission to stop after 20 minutes if the writing wasn't happening. But here's what happens 99 times out of 100. When you sit down to do something, literally or more metaphorically, and you start working through the motions, you start putting the steps together, after 20 minutes, you've started to build the magic of motivation. And the magic of motivation is momentum. So much of motivation is about creating motion for yourself. You'll see that the word motion is in the word motivation. Just cut out a few of the middle letters. So you generate this momentum by doing that action and starting to put the steps together. Now the key part of this process is to have that honest permission with yourself to say, if after 20 minutes this isn't working, then I give myself permission to stop. Because there are times when that will happen. I've had times when I've been writing and I've realized it's just not happening today. I've had times when I've been exercising and I've put on my gym gear and I've walked to the gym and I've started to do my first few exercises and I realized, no, my sleep's not right, my health isn't right, my energy isn't right. Whatever that might be, I recognize that, no, there's something more than just a motivation problem that's stopping me from exercising well today. There's more than just a motivation problem that's stopping me from writing today. So I accept and embrace that, and you can accept and embrace that too. But that won't be the norm. What you'll find will be the norm is actually when you start engaging in the process, putting the words on the paper, doing the reps, is that you start to generate that momentum for yourself, and that generates the feeling of being motivated. When you've been running for 20 minutes, you start to feel more like running. You start to get the chemicals moving around, the blood flow, the oxygen. It starts to feel good. Yes, it's tiring and taxing in one way, but it feels good in another way. That's why so many people run and so many people report a benefit of running. It's through generating that feeling. But you've got to start to get in the game. And that's what the 20-minute rule is all about. So whatever you are procrastinating on right now in your life, if you have certain goals in your health, your career, your relationships even, this can apply and work. How can you use the 20-minute rule to get yourself in the game? How can you get yourself on that running track? How can you get yourself on that phone? How can you get yourself to the other side of the bar to talk to that person? That is what the 20-minute rule is all about. And when you start to use this rule in your life, you'll be surprised at how often you are motivated to do things. Because motivation is not a thing. It's not something that's given to you. It's not these wild flashes of inspiration that are gifted to us. Motivation is our responsibility. It's our responsibility to be motivated, to generate that motivation. So will you take that responsibility today? Thank you so much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I hope you'll continue to enjoy the episodes to come and to join us on another one in the future. Until next time, remember that you are the author of your life. You hold the pen, and you can write whatever script you want for yourself. So go out today and write yourself a beautiful story. I'll speak to you soon. David. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd appreciate it hugely if you could head over to iTunes and leave a rating and review for the podcast. With your review, please be as honest and detailed as you can be. Because with honest and detailed feedback, that helps me to adapt and grow this podcast to most serve you, the listener. Also, if you enjoyed this episode, then make sure you subscribe to the podcast. That way you aren't going to miss any of the future episodes that we've got lined up for you. Until next time, remember that you are the author of your life. You hold the pen, and you can write whatever script you want for yourself. So go out today and write yourself a beautiful story.